Most people know Nike. The swoosh, the just do it slogan, the shoes that changed sports forever. But few know the man who started it all from the trunk of his car. He wasn't an athlete. He wasn't a designer. He was a middle-class accountant with a crazy idea. Yet today, he's worth $35.4 billion and built the most iconic sports brand on earth. This is Phil Knight, the swoosh king, who turned a college paper into a global empire. The accountant who dreamed bigger. Philip Hampson Knight was born on February 24, 1938, in Portland, Oregon. Today, at 87 years old, he's worth $35.4 billion and controls Nike, the largest athletic footwear and apparel company in the world. But Phil's story didn't start with billions. It started with running shoes and a college assignment. Phil grew up in a middle-class family. His father was a newspaper publisher. His mother was a homemaker. They weren't rich, but they were comfortable. As a teenager, Phil was a decent middle-distance runner at the University of Oregon. He wasn't great, but he was good enough to make the track team. His coach was Bill Bowerman, a legendary figure who obsessed over shoe design. Bowerman believed better shoes made better athletes, a former teammate remembered. Coach Bowerman was always tinkering with shoes. He'd cut them apart, rebuild them, try crazy materials. He was obsessed. Phil wasn't the fastest runner, but he paid attention. He watched Bowerman experiment. He learned that shoes mattered. After college, Phil attended Stanford Graduate School of Business. For a class assignment, he wrote a paper arguing that high-quality, low-cost running shoes could be imported from Japan to compete with dominant German brands like Adidas. His professor thought it was interesting. Phil thought it was a business plan. After graduating in 1962, Phil did something bold. He traveled to Japan and met with Onitsuka Tiger, a shoe manufacturer. He convinced them to let him distribute their shoes in America. There was just one problem. Phil had no company, so he made one up on the spot. He told them he represented Blue Ribbon Sports. It didn't exist. He invented it in the meeting. A business partner later recalled Phil saying, "I lied. I had no company, but I needed to say something, so I made it up." That lie became the foundation of Nike, from car trunk to empire. In 1964, Phil officially founded Blue Ribbon Sports with his old coach, Bill Bowerman. Each put in $500. That was the entire startup capital. Phil worked as an accountant during the day and sold shoes out of his car trunk at track meets on weekends. A former customer remembered Phil would show up with a box of shoes in his trunk. He wasn't pushy. He just loved the shoes and believed in them. Sales were slow at first, but runners loved the shoes. They were lighter, cheaper, and well made. Bill's strategy was simple. Sell to serious runners first. Get them hooked. Let word spread. By the late 1960s, Blue Ribbon Sports was growing, but Phil wanted more control. He didn't want to just distribute someone else's shoes. He wanted to make his own. In 1971, Blue Ribbon Sports officially became Nike, named after the Greek goddess of victory. Phil hired a graphic design student named Carolyn Davidson to create a logo. He paid her $35. She designed the swoosh. Phil later admitted, "I didn't love the swoosh at first, but it grew on me. And now it's the most recognizable logo in the world." The waffle iron innovation. Nike's breakthrough came from Bill Bowerman's obsession with better shoes. One morning in 1971, Bowerman was making waffles for breakfast. He stared at the waffle iron and had an idea. What if he poured rubber into the waffle iron to create a new sole pattern? He tried it. He ruined his wife's waffle iron. But he created the waffle sole, a revolutionary design that gave runners better traction and lighter shoes. Bowerman's wife later joked, "Bill ruined my waffle iron, but he created a billion-dollar shoe." The waffle sole became Nike's signature innovation. Runners loved it. Sales exploded. By the mid-1970s, Nike was outselling Adidas in the United States. A retail analyst from that era said, Nike came out of nowhere. They weren't the biggest or the flashiest, but runners trusted them. And that trust built an empire. The athlete endorsements that changed everything. Phil Knight understood something other shoe companies didn't. Athletes sell shoes better than ads. In 1984, Nike signed a rookie basketball player named Michael Jordan. The deal was risky. Jordan wasn't proven yet. And Nike paid him $500,000 a year, an insane amount at the time. The NBA even banned Jordan shoes because they didn't meet uniform standards. Nike turned it into a marketing campaign banned by the NBA. The Air Jordan line launched in 1985. It sold 126 million in the first year. A former Nike executive said, Michael Jordan didn't just sell shoes. He created a culture. Kids wanted to be like Mike. That changed everything. Jordan himself later said, Phil believed in me before anyone else did. He bet on me. And we both won. Phil didn't stop with Jordan. He signed Tiger Woods, Serena Williams, LeBron James, Cristiano Ronaldo, and countless other legends. A sports marketing expert explained, Phil understood that people don't buy shoes, they buy dreams. And athletes represent those dreams. Just do it. The slogan that defined a generation in 1988. Nike launched its most famous campaign, Just Do It. The slogan was simple, powerful, and universal. It wasn't just about sports, it was about life. The campaign featured everyday people and elite athletes. The message, anyone can achieve greatness. Just do it. A marketing professor said, just do it. It is one of the greatest slogans ever created. 3 words that inspired millions. Phil later explained, we didn't want to just sell shoes. We wanted to inspire people, to push them, to make them believe they could do more. The campaign worked. Nike sales went from 877 million in 1988 to over 9 billion by 1998. Nike wasn't just a shoe company anymore. It was a cultural movement. The controversies and criticisms. Nike's rise wasn't without controversy. In the 1990s, activists accused Nike of running sweatshops in Asia. Reports showed workers in poor conditions, earning pennies, making shoes sold for hundreds of dollars. Protests erupted. Students boycotted Nike on college campuses. The media hammered the company. Phil initially resisted criticism, but eventually Nike had to respond. In 1998, Phil admitted the Nike product has become synonymous with slave wages, forced overtime, and arbitrary abuse. I truly believe the American consumer doesn't want to buy products made under abusive conditions. Nike implemented reforms, better wages, improved conditions, third-party audits. A labor rights advocate said, Nike made changes, but only after massive pressure. Phil learned that profits can't come at any cost. Phil later reflected, we made mistakes, we learned. We're not perfect, but we're trying to do better. The man behind the swoosh. Despite his massive wealth, Phil Knight is notoriously private and low-key. He doesn't flaunt his money. He doesn't live in a massive mansion. He drives modest cars. He wears Nike gear, not designer suits. A former Nike executive said Phil is a billionaire who acts like a regular guy. He's shy, introverted, and uncomfortable with attention. Phil is deeply loyal. Many Nike executives work with him for decades. He values relationships over transactions. He's also fiercely competitive. A colleague once said, Phil hates losing more than he loves winning. That drive built Nike. Phil is married to Penny Knight. Together, they've donated over $3 billion to education, medical research, and athletics. They've given hundreds of millions to the University of Oregon, Phil's alma mater. They've funded cancer research at Oregon Health and Science University. A university official said, Phil gives quietly and generously. He doesn't want buildings named after him. He just wants to help. Tragedy struck the Knight family in 2004 when their son Matthew died in a scuba diving accident. He was only 34 years old. Phil was devastated. He stepped back from Nike's daily operations, handing control to professional managers. A close friend said, losing Matthew changed Phil. He realized life is about more than business. He focused on family and giving back, the legacy and the future. In 2016, Phil officially stepped down as Nike's chairman. He handed leadership to the next generation. But his legacy is everywhere. Nike generates over $50 billion in annual revenue. It employs over 75,000 people worldwide. It's the most valuable sports brand on earth. The swoosh is recognized in every country. Just do it is a universal rallying cry. A brand consultant said, Phil Knight didn't just build a company, he built a religion. People worship Nike. That's his genius. Phil's children are involved in philanthropy but stay out of the spotlight. The Knight family fortune is being used to fund education, science, and community development. At 87, Phil is largely retired. He splits his time between Oregon and Hawaii. He reads, he reflects, and he watches the empire he built continue to grow. In his memoir, Phil wrote, "Life is growth. You grow or you die." He grew a 1,000-lot investment into a $35.4 billion fortune. He grew a car trunk operation into a global empire. He grew a simple idea into a cultural phenomenon. Phil Knight proved that you don't need to be the smartest or the richest to succeed. You just need an idea, the courage to try, and the refusal to quit.